I was given a choice, to fight or to give up, and I chose the wrong path. But even if I could go back, I would do the same thing. Wait for an unexpected outcome. It was just a drawing. Crayons, stick figures, a rainbow house, and two smiley adults standing under a crooked sun. My daughter, bright-eyed and always proud, handed it to me after dinner while I was still half reading work emails. "Me and Mommy and Dave," she beamed, tapping her little finger on the name scribbled in uneven letters. The signature, "Mom and Dave," made me pause. I let out a light chuckle and asked, "Who's Dave?" I expected her to say a teacher or one of the neighbors' dads, maybe even a character from a show. But instead she said, "Mom's friend. He brings cookies when you're not home." My laugh caught in my throat. There was a flicker in my chest I couldn't name, like a match being struck and blown out too fast. I smiled, nodded, and handed the drawing back. She skipped off. I tried to refocus on my screen, but my eyes blurred over the numbers. The name Dave kept circling like a hawk overhead. The next morning, we were all in the kitchen. Jessica stood at the stove, humming something off-tune, spatula in hand. The scent of sizzling bacon filled the air, thick, greasy, and unmistakable. I hated bacon, always had. She knew that. We joked about it 100 times over the years. "Since when do you cook that stuff?" I asked, not accusing, just confused. She shrugged like it was nothing. "Just felt like it." Her hair was pinned up, loose strands curling near her neck. She looked tired, or maybe just not present. That's when our son, who had been flipping through one of his comic books at the table, mumbled with a mouthful of toast, "Just like at Dave's house." The clatter of the spatula hitting the stovetop was the only sound for a full 5 seconds. My coffee cup was halfway to my lips. I set it down slowly. Jessica turned too quickly, her smile wide and brittle. "Honey, don't be silly." But the damage was done. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger wearing her skin. The kitchen went on. Plates clinked, juice poured, cartoons played in the background. But something fundamental had changed for me in that moment. Not a full break, not yet, but a fracture. One of those hairline cracks in a glass you don't see until you pour something hot inside. That night, I stayed up after everyone else had gone to bed. I couldn't stop replaying the day, tracing back every moment. I kept hearing Dave in both my kids' voices. The name didn't fit into our life. It didn't belong. I wanted to believe it was innocent, a misunderstanding. But I'd been with Jessica long enough to recognize when her energy was off. Lately, she'd been humming songs she never listened to before. She smiled at her phone more than at me. She was wearing perfume again, subtle like jasmine and something sharp underneath. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Something inside told me to wait, to observe. I needed more than suspicions. I needed the truth to knock on my door, sit down at my table, and look me in the eye. 2 nights later, it did. I was up again, scrolling uselessly on my phone in the living room, the blue glow casting long shadows on the walls. From down the hallway, I heard a low whisper. Jessica's voice, soft, affectionate, hushed in a way she never spoke to me anymore. I held my breath. "I miss you," she said, clear as day. Then silence. I waited, heart pounding, until the bedroom door creaked shut. I stood, not even bothering to be quiet. I walked to the kitchen and found her there, sitting in the dark like a ghost caught in the wrong timeline. 2 wine glasses on the table, hers and another. I said nothing, just stepped forward and picked up the second glass. Sniffed. Not wine, cologne. A man's cologne. Something expensive and unfamiliar. Jessica looked up at me, eyes wide and unblinking. "Just having dinner," she said, voice too steady. The muscles in my jaw tightened. My hand around the glass trembled slightly, but I set it down gently, turned around, and walked back to bed. She didn't follow. I lay there for hours, the ceiling fan ticking overhead, like some slow-motion clock counting down to the end of something sacred. I stared into the dark, not with fear, but with awakening. There was a name now, a face forming in shadow, and it wasn't mine. I carried the silence with me like a second skin the next morning. Made coffee, packed the kids' lunches, asked about homework. Jessica acted normal, overly so. She wore that same pink robe she hadn't touched in months, kissed my cheek like she still meant it, and asked if I could swing by the dry cleaner on my way back from the gym. She didn't mention the wine glasses, didn't ask why I didn't speak to her after we'd gone to bed. Just smiled like we were still in our old life, the one before the cracks had shown. I played along, but inside everything had shifted. I didn't trust my eyes anymore. I trusted details, little things. The second glass, the unfamiliar scent, the sudden increase in her me time. I watched her that whole week like I'd never seen her before. The way she checked her phone and then turned its screen down. The way she wiped her mouth twice after every bite when she ate, like she was trying to scrub off guilt she couldn't name. 3 days later, I was in the garage helping our daughter find a toy she'd lost behind some boxes. While I dug through shelves, she sat on the floor, swinging her legs and talking like kids do, freely, without filter. "Daddy, why don't you dance with Mommy like Dave does?" My hands stopped moving. I looked down at her, trying to keep my voice calm. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head, shrugging like it was nothing. "He dances with her in the kitchen sometimes. They laugh a lot. He spins her. It's funny." I swallowed hard. The dust in the air was thick. Or maybe it was just my chest tightening around the truth I no longer wanted to deny. That night I lay in bed, pretending to scroll through my phone, waiting for Jessica to fall asleep. But she didn't. At around 11:30, I heard her whispering again. This time her voice was softer, laced with longing. No laughter, just low, intimate murmurs. I couldn't catch everything, but I caught enough. "I miss you." "No, he doesn't know." "Yes, soon." I sat up, pulled on a hoodie, and went downstairs. The kitchen was empty at first, but a minute later, I heard the quiet click of her phone locking behind me. She stepped into the light slowly, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping bear. She was barefoot, her hair brushed and shiny like she'd just done it. On the table there were 2 plates. Hers was nearly finished, the other untouched. She smiled, said she was just having a late dinner. I didn't say a word. I walked over, picked up the second fork, and ran my fingers over it. It was still warm. The seat across from her had a faint imprint. Her eyes tracked me, pupils flickering like faulty lights. I picked up the empty glass beside the plate. Wine again, but underneath, cologne. A different one this time. Sharper, less expensive. "Dinner with a friend," she said again. I nodded. Walked to the sink and washed the glass myself. I didn't ask anything. I didn't want lies to fill the space between us. I just dried it, put it away, and went to bed without looking back. But something had hardened in me. The next morning I woke up early, made breakfast like always, toasted her bagel the way she liked, left the knife beside the cream cheese for her to use. She came downstairs in leggings and that hoodie she only wore when she was about to leave the house for a long time. "Just going to meet a friend," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Which one?" I asked, voice even. She blinked, then smiled like I'd told a joke. "A friend from yoga. You don't know her?" I nodded again. Then I watched her walk out the door, keys jingling in her pocket, her perfume trailing behind her like a ghost of who she used to be. After she left, I went into the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet. There were 2 unfamiliar toothbrushes there. New. One blue, one black. I hadn't noticed them before. My hands hovered over them for a second, then closed the door. Her reflection stared back at me through the mirror, even though she wasn't there. That evening, she returned home later than usual. Said traffic was bad. Her hair was slightly damp around the temples, but it wasn't raining. She tossed her hoodie onto the back of a chair. I picked it up after she left the room and held it to my face. The faint scent of a man's deodorant was embedded in the fabric, beneath a trace of vanilla shampoo. It wasn't mine. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I picked up my phone, walked into the guest room, and turned on the video recorder. My face looked hollow under the yellow light. My voice came out slow, deliberate. "Today is the last day of lies." I didn't cry, didn't shake. I just hit save, then tucked the phone under the mattress. I wasn't ready to act. Not yet. But I was done being blind. The light was on now, and it was showing me everything. That night when Jessica came home, She went straight to the laundry room. I followed her quietly and watched as she scrubbed something from the collar of her blouse. It looked like makeup, foundation maybe, but when I got closer, I could smell it. It wasn't hers. The scent was powdery, floral, foreign. She noticed me in the doorway and froze. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. I turned and walked to our bedroom. Behind me, I could hear her breathing change. Short, panicked. She knew I knew. She just didn't know how much. Yet. By the next morning, I'd perfected the art of pretending. I laughed with the kids over cereal, helped them button their coats, packed lunchboxes with silly notes like nothing was wrong. But my smile was cracked porcelain. Behind it, every breath I took felt like I was inhaling smoke from something already burning. Jessica fluttered around us, her hair still damp from her morning shower, humming off-key while flipping pancakes. She hadn't made pancakes in months. She only ever made them when she was guilty about something. Our daughter giggled as syrup dripped off her fork, and our son leaned into my shoulder while chewing. I should have cherished it, but the words he said next stole the sweetness from the morning like a frost cutting down spring. "Dave's better at baseball than you," he mumbled casually, mouth half full. My hand froze on the coffee mug mid-sip. My eyes met Jessica's across the table. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just kept eating. I couldn't breathe for a moment. It was such a small thing. A kid's comment, harmless if the context hadn't already been poisoned. But now it rang like a gunshot in my chest. I forced a chuckle, ruffled my son's hair, but my heart was somewhere else entirely. Standing outside myself, watching this twisted play unfold where the lines were all lies. Later that day, while the kids napped in front of the TV after a long afternoon at the park, I stood in the bathroom doorway, watching Jessica curl her lashes in front of the mirror. She didn't see me at first. Her eyes focused, her lips slightly parted. She'd put on lipstick, soft red, and I recognized the perfume. Not the usual floral she used to wear, but something sharper, spicier. New. "Going out?" I asked casually. She jumped slightly, then laughed too fast. "Yeah, just meeting a friend." I nodded, leaning against the doorframe. "Same one as last time?" She blinked for a half second too long. "No, different friend. You don't know her." I smiled. "Of course not." I watched her slip a lacy bra into her bag, one I hadn't seen in months. She picked out black heels she never wore with me. The kind she used to joke made her feet hurt too much to dance in. I stayed silent, just watched, observed, took in the way her hands shook slightly while applying eyeliner. When she left, I followed 5 minutes behind. I didn't tail her car. That would have been too obvious. I already knew where she was going. I wasn't ready to confront her. I was gathering proof, collecting pieces of the puzzle so I wouldn't second-guess myself when it all finally shattered. Instead, I went home and pulled out my phone. The video I'd recorded the night before still sat there, untouched. But now I had something else to add to it. I filmed the bathroom counter, the opened perfume, the tube of red lipstick, the overnight bag she'd left zipped just enough for the lingerie inside to be visible. I spoke to the camera again, quieter this time. She left at 7:48, said she was seeing a friend. This is what she packed. The kids are asleep on the couch. I'm tired of pretending. Then I placed the phone on the dresser, walked downstairs, and started cleaning the kitchen like nothing had happened. Every plate I scrubbed felt like it carried a lie. Every crumb under the toaster felt like residue from a life I didn't recognize anymore. It was after midnight when she came home. Her heels clicked against the tile like metronome ticks counting down the end of us. She smelled like sweat, alcohol, and someone else's cologne. Her hair was messy now, her eyeliner smudged. She didn't say much, just mumbled something about being tired, kissed my cheek out of habit, and climbed into bed without brushing her teeth. I stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at her curled form in the dark, her back to me, breathing even, like nothing had happened, like this was still a home. The next morning, I took the kids to the park. The air was cold and sharp, but they didn't seem to mind. We threw frisbees, climbed the jungle gym, shared a pretzel from the food cart. I laughed for real, maybe for the first time in weeks, because they were still mine. They hadn't changed. And yet, even here, the ghost of Dave followed us. Our son pointed to a nearby man playing catch with his own kid. "That's how Dave does it," he said, throwing the frisbee back to me. "He taught me the twist throw." I caught the disc, but I didn't throw it back. My hand clenched around the edge. "Did he now?" Our daughter chimed in, hopping from one foot to the other. "Yeah, Mommy says he's fun. He brings toys and cookies." Something inside me went quiet then, a silence so loud it felt like the world had gone underwater. That night when Jessica was out getting groceries, I went into our bedroom and opened her closet. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe just one more truth, one more betrayal I could put a name on. That's when I found the shoebox behind her old scarves. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a silver bracelet. Elegant, understated, engraved on the inside, M+D. I almost dropped it. My hand went cold. There was a small folded note inside, barely bigger than a receipt. "You are my future." I sat down on the edge of the bed and didn't move for 10 full minutes. When our daughter wandered in later with her toy dinosaur, she saw the box on my lap and hesitated. Then she said, "Dave gave that to Mommy, but I didn't want you to be sad." I looked at her, every part of me breaking, but I smiled. "Thank you for telling me." She handed me the dinosaur, said he'd protect me. Then she went back to play. That night I didn't sleep. I lay between my kids, arms around them both, listening to them breathe. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself cry. Not because I was losing Jessica, but because I knew what I had to do next. The morning light filtered through the blinds and streaks across my son's face. He snored softly, tangled in his Star Wars blanket, one arm flung over his sister who curled into me like I was her whole world. I didn't want to move, not yet. There was something sacred in the stillness, something that reminded me of a time before the air between Jessica and me had filled with shadows. But truth doesn't sleep forever. By noon, I'd made my decision. While Jessica was out again, some emergency call from her co-worker, I drove to a clinic 2 towns over, the kind that didn't ask questions, that specialized in privacy. I submitted my DNA, paid in cash. When they asked for the children's samples, I said I'd return tomorrow. That night, I clipped small strands of their hair while they slept, whispering apologies into the dark. I packaged them carefully and sealed them in 2 separate bags, labeled only by initials. I couldn't explain what I was feeling. It wasn't fear anymore. It was something worse, a quiet emptiness that had carved itself into my spine. Like my body already knew what the results would say. Like part of me had been dying slowly every time my kids said his name with joy, not knowing they were twisting a knife deeper into me. But I didn't stop being their dad. While the test processed, I filled the days with as much joy as I could fake. We made pizzas from scratch, tossed flour at each other in the kitchen, binged old movies in a nest of blankets. I held on to every moment, memorizing their laughter. I wanted them to know, even if they didn't understand it yet, that I never left, that I was always there. On the 3rd night just after dinner, my daughter brought me a shoebox, the same one from the closet, but this time it was heavier. "I don't want Mommy to be mad," she whispered, "but I don't like secrets." Inside, tucked beneath the bracelet I'd seen before, was a stack of photographs. Most were innocent. Park visits, birthday balloons, the kids grinning mid-bite into cookies. But the one at the bottom made my stomach cave. Jessica and a man I didn't know, tall, dark-haired, smug grin, stood in front of a backyard grill, his hand around her waist, her lips pressed to his cheek. It wasn't a kiss. It was worse. It was familiarity, like they'd been doing it for years. And behind them, in the corner of the shot, was my son, tossing a ball in the grass like nothing in the world was wrong. I took the box and slid it onto the top shelf of my closet, locked it with a key I hadn't used in 5 years. I didn't speak to Jessica that night. I didn't even look at her. I sat in the living room while she watched some trashy reality show, laughing too loud, eyes never really focused on the screen. My phone buzzed in my hand at 10:17 p.m. DNA results ready? I didn't check them right away. I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the notification. When I finally tapped it open, I didn't feel the ground shift or the walls close in. There was just silence. My daughter, mine, my son, Not. I stared at those words until the phone went dim in my hand. The next morning, I didn't eat. I didn't even make coffee. I waited for Jessica to go into the shower. Then I sat outside the bathroom door, envelope in hand, listening to the water pound against the tile, while she hummed that same goddamn song I'd heard a dozen times since Dave entered our lives. When the water stopped, I walked in, placed the envelope on the sink without a word. She froze when she saw it, water still dripping from her hair, towel wrapped tight around her chest. Her eyes flicked between the envelope and me. She opened it, read the first line, then the next. Her hands shook. "You're wrong," she whispered, voice cracking. This isn't possible." I didn't raise my voice, didn't scream. I just looked at her and said, "I don't need explanations. I need truth and silence." Her mouth opened again, closed. I left the bathroom, packed 2 duffel bags, one for each kid, grabbed coats, gloves, boots, called my brother and told him we were coming. No, not all of us, just me and the kids. He didn't ask questions. He never did. Jessica didn't try to stop me. She just stood there dripping onto the hardwood floor, clutching that envelope like it was the last page of a fairy tale she'd rewritten too many times. The kids didn't understand. I told them we were going on an adventure. I smiled through the lie, but my son kept asking questions on the drive. Why isn't Mommy coming with us? I gripped the wheel tighter. The snow had started falling, soft flakes gathering on the windshield. Because Mom made a mistake, I said. And we didn't. The countryside felt like a different world. My brother's cabin sat at the edge of a frozen lake, smoke curling from the chimney like something out of a children's book. Inside it was warm, safe. The kids ran around exploring every corner, laughing like they hadn't been living in a house held together by lies. We built a fort from pillows and blankets in the living room, lit a fire, told ghost stories, ate marshmallows until our fingers stuck together. It was the first time in weeks I felt human again. But that night, as I tucked my son into bed, he looked up at me with those same eyes I'd always assumed were mine and asked, "Do you still love Mom?" I swallowed hard. I'll always care about her, but love is something you have to protect. He didn't understand. He just nodded sleepily and turned onto his side. I sat beside him long after he fell asleep, because no matter what came next, one thing was clear. My life was now divided, before the truth and after it. A week passed at my brother's place, and something about the cold, clean air felt like it was scraping the rot out of my lungs. The kids adjusted faster than I expected, sledding down small hills behind the cabin, drawing in frost on the windows, helping feed the chickens like it was normal. They asked fewer questions now, though I knew the silence around Jessica still tugged at their small hearts. I told them stories every night, not the ones with monsters, but the ones where fathers never left, even when the world tried to tear everything away. Then on a Wednesday afternoon, she came. I saw the car crawling up the snowy road like a wound moving through the landscape. The kids were outside rolling snowballs. I told my brother to keep them close. Then I opened the door before she had the chance to knock. Jessica looked thinner, paler. She held 2 bags, one with gifts, the other with clothes. Her eyes were red, raw. The kind of crying you don't do unless something inside you has snapped. "I just want to see them," she whispered, voice brittle as ice. "You can, but only if you start with the truth." Her shoulders dropped. She nodded slowly and stepped inside. She didn't dare ask about me. She knew I was past the phase of giving her any piece of myself without cost. Her gaze darted around like she was afraid even the walls might accuse her. The kids saw her through the window and sprinted to the door before I could stop them. They crashed into her legs with all the innocence of children who didn't understand the weight their mother carried now. She cried openly, hugging them, kissing their hair. For a moment, it almost looked like family again. Almost. She stayed for dinner, said she missed their voices, that her world had gone quiet without them. She glanced at me across the table when she said it, hoping for softness. There was none. I barely spoke. After I put the kids to bed, I found her in the living room staring at an old photo on the mantel, one where we were all in costume. Halloween 5 years back. I was a pirate, she was a witch, and the kids were matching skeletons. She traced the edge of the frame with her finger. "I ruined everything," she said, eyes not leaving the picture. "But I want to fix it." I stood behind the couch, arms folded. Then you do it my way. Mental health screening, full legal custody agreement signed by both of us. You don't see them unless I say so. And you tell them the truth yourself. In front of me. She turned pale. What? No, Logan, Those are the terms. Her face collapsed. She cried again. The ugly kind. Snot, trembling lips, curled fists against her knees. I didn't offer a tissue. I didn't move. She agreed through broken gas. I'll do anything. For a moment I believed her. The next 2 days she tried. Brought the kids puzzles. Read them bedtime stories. Even played board games with my brother's daughter like nothing had happened. But underneath her smiles was a storm building. She was trying to behave like the mother she should have been before the lies, but the guilt inside her was eating her from the inside out. I could see it every time she glanced at me, waiting for some flicker of the man she used to know. Then she broke. It happened in the middle of breakfast. I asked her to sign the legal draft my lawyer had emailed. The document was clear: shared holidays, scheduled visits, nothing unannounced. She looked at it, pen shaking in her hand, and something inside her snapped. You think you can control everything now? She hissed. You get to be the hero because you walked away and played daddy in the snow? The room went dead silent. I reached for my phone and pressed record. You're not better than me, she screamed, standing so fast the chair toppled behind her. You don't get to erase me. I made one mistake. One? I cut in, voice low. Read the DNA results again. She threw a mug across the room. It shattered against the stone fireplace. The kids upstairs went quiet. You ruined this family, she shouted, pointing at me like I was the one who slept with a stranger in our bed. I didn't react, just kept the camera steady, documenting it all. Her rage, her loss of control, the lies bleeding into madness. My brother stepped into the room, eyes cold. You're done, he said. Out. Jessica looked between us, realizing the performance was over, that there was no sympathy left, no crack in the wall she could wedge herself into. She left without another word, tears freezing on her cheeks as the door slammed behind her. I stood there listening to the quiet that followed, the kind of silence that comes when a storm finally burns itself out. I saved the recording and backed it up twice, sent one copy to my lawyer, just in case. That night, our daughter asked why Mommy had yelled. I sat on the edge of her bed, brushed the hair from her forehead, and said, because sometimes grown-ups forget how to say sorry, but that doesn't mean we stop loving them. She nodded, closed her eyes. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, soundless. And I knew we weren't going back. 12 days had passed since we left the house where everything fell apart. The cabin had started to feel like something more than a refuge. It was becoming home. The kids had stopped asking when we were going back. They built snowmen in the yard, took turns sledding down makeshift hills, and drew superhero maps on the windows with markers. I watched them rediscover joy, and with every laugh, I felt a piece of myself harden into something unshakable. Jessica hadn't called since the meltdown. The silence didn't comfort me. It pressed in like a warning. My brother could feel it too. He installed a new security camera and kept his phone charged like we were waiting for something to break loose. But life didn't stop. The kids had a school event, the family celebration, something I'd forgotten in the chaos. I almost didn't go, but my daughter begged me to. She wanted to wear her glitter shoes and show Daddy the song. So I dressed them up and drove the 2 hours back into town. The gym was packed. Parents swarmed the folding chairs with cameras, laughter echoing off the walls. My son stumbled through his solo line during the class poem, and my daughter tripped walking up the steps. They were perfect. They were mine. Then came the family talent contest. I planned to sit out, but my son pulled me up. Dad, come on, the song. We stood on stage under blinding lights and sang the goofy cartoon theme we used to belt on Saturday mornings. The crowd loved it. My daughter twirled beside us like a backup dancer in sneakers. Somehow we won. While people clapped and the next act shuffled on stage, I saw her, Jessica, standing near the exit, pale, tightly clutching her purse, staring at the stage like she was watching her life from behind glass. She didn't see me at first. When I approached, she opened her mouth, but I cut her off. I handed her a bag, sweatshirt, toothbrush, and a cropped photo of the kids. I'd removed myself from the frame. "We're no longer part of your show," I told her. She dropped to her knees in the hallway, sobbing, gasping their names. Not mine, like saying them enough could bring her back into their orbit. I didn't look back. That night back at the cabin, I was pouring a drink when someone knocked on the door. I opened it to find a man standing there. Late 30s, dressed like a walking resume. I knew instantly. "Logan?" he asked. I nodded. "Dave." He didn't smile. "She's not okay. I didn't know about the other guy. She was seeing someone else, her gym trainer, while she was with me." I didn't flinch. "She lied to both of us," he continued. "Here." He handed me a folder. Screenshots, messages. I figured you should see it. I took the folder and shut the door without a word. Later that night, I opened it. Everything inside confirmed what I already knew. Jessica hadn't just cheated. She had spiraled. There were layers of deception beneath what I thought was rock bottom. I looked across the room at my kids, curled in blankets on the couch, fast asleep. They were safe, innocent. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt ready. I woke early the next morning, before the sun cracked the horizon, before the kids stirred under their blankets. The air inside the cabin was still, hushed like the world had paused for me. I stood by the window, staring out over the frozen lake, watching the wind paint invisible trails across the snow. In that moment, I felt it, the calm before the last breath of a war you didn't start but had to finish. I'd made my decision. By noon, we were back in town. I didn't tell Jessica we were coming. I didn't need her permission anymore. I'd already filed the custody papers 2 days earlier. This wasn't a negotiation. It was the reading of a sentence. Final. Signed. Witnessed. The lawyer's office was quiet. Beige walls, ticking clock, 2 pens on the desk. Jessica sat across from me in a gray coat, her makeup neat, her expression forced. She looked like someone playing the role of a mother on TV, sober, serious, not even trying to cry now. "You can see them on Sundays. Supervised. We alternate holidays. No surprises. And you tell them everything yourself. No sugarcoating." She nodded. Her lawyer whispered something. She didn't respond. Just stared at the paper in front of her, eyes empty. And then she signed. I took the documents, folded them neatly, and stood. "That's it?" she asked. "You're just walking away?" I paused in the doorway. "I walked away a long time ago. You just didn't notice." She stayed seated, hands folded, staring at the table like it held all her broken pieces. That night back at the cabin, the kids were already asleep when I finally let myself breathe. I poured a glass of scotch, sat on the porch, and listened to the silence. No cars, no phones, no Jessica, just clean air and a sky full of stars. It could have ended there, but something didn't sit right. So the next day I drove to our old house. She wasn't home, probably at her mother's. I still had a key. Inside, the place felt frozen in time. Unwashed dishes, a stale wine bottle still on the counter. Her phone charger dangled from the outlet like a limb. Upstairs, the bedroom smelled of old perfume and regrets. I opened the closet, pulled down the shoebox she thought I never noticed, and removed the bracelet, M+D. I set it on the nightstand next to a handwritten letter I'd spent hours crafting the night before. Not rage, not insults, just clarity. Each lie, each name, each date, each photo, everything in one final truth. And beneath the bracelet, I placed the last picture we'd taken as a family. Cropped once again, only this time, I'd removed her. She wouldn't find the real final gift until morning. The lawyer had already emailed the school, submitting my change of emergency contacts. She was removed. All pickups, medical calls, and permissions now ran through me, and only me. And then there was the bank. Jessica would wake to an account drained, legally. No theft, no hidden moves. Just transfers into a trust for the kids. Every penny documented. Every dime clean. She'd be left with enough to start again, but not enough to run. I left the house before she came back. Didn't slam the door. Didn't take one last look. Just drove back to the cabin where my children waited, tucked into a life they deserved. Safe, steady, and mine. They never asked for vengeance, but they got freedom. And she got the silence she'd earned. Let her burn in it. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.